Welcome to Ghouls Night Out with your hostesses, Brandy and Jody. Hello and welcome. This is Brandy. I'm here with my sister Jody.
Hello.
So, how are you?
I'm pretty good.
We went on our ghost walk last night.
Yes, and it feels weird to be recording right now instead of last night.
We are doing this during the day, which is very weird for us. So, again, out of our element, but we got to do what we got to do. So we went on the ghost walk last night, which I had a really good time. We had a good group of people. Nobody was obnoxious or anything like that, so that was good. And it was my first one, and I had a good time. How would you think of it?
It was good. They do a really good job. It's more of a history ghost walk. So they, take you around different places and tell the history of whatever building or cemetery or whatever you're in front of at the time. And then they go into the ghost stories associated with that location. Yeah. And I think they do a really good job. They're called UnseenPress Historical Ghost Walks, and they're based out of Indiana. They have a website. I'm pretty sure it's UnseenPress.com.
I believe it is,
You guys can look that up if you want to.
And I'm going to attempt to put a link in our description of their website. Yeah. So if I can figure that out, I'm going to do that. If I can't, it might be on there later on. So, I'll just have to give you an update, but hopefully I can figure that out before Tuesday. But
yeah, it's a husband and wife group or whatever. What's that called?
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, and she writes...
Team.
Yeah.
Let's go with that.
Husband and wife team. And she actually has published a few books, too.
Right. Yeah, and those are on the website as well.
Yeah.
So, and she is actually a really good storyteller. I found her stories fascinating, and she had me engaged. And
she was pretty funny, too.
Yeah. I had a really good time. It was my first time doing really anything like that, and it was very interesting.
The only thing is I wanted to go into every building they were talking about.
I know. And I took a bunch of pictures actually, but only a few turned out good enough to put them on the website or the Facebook page. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to try and put a little bit of what they are. And really, there only may be a couple that I put on there, but like the Historical Society, this was in Noblesville as well. So if you are from Indiana and you know where Noblesville is, that's where we went. It was this Historical Society. Mm-hmm. And I took pictures of, that used to be an old jail. And did you notice that on the top floor where it used to be the women's part, they still had the bars on the windows?
Oh, yeah.
It was so cool. So I took a picture of that. So I'll put that on the Facebook page. And I also, I believe, took a picture of the back part, which was the man's jail. And I'm not sure how good those turned out, but...
Yeah. Well, you know that you can go there anytime you want to.
Well, she kept saying... You guys should go in there, I guess when they're open.
Yeah.
So, that would be
I want to go in there.
I do too. Okay. I do too. I also want to go into that antique mall.
The antique mall. I want to go to Sid's too.
Yeah.
She was talking about how good the food was, and it's like,
yeah.
Killed two birds with one stone there.
Yeah.
But I'd be afraid to go to the bathroom.
Oh, I know. Seems like everybody was having stuff happen in there with a man.
I know.
Ooh. Yeah, I
would go in the bathroom, and of course, you know me, I always have to go to the bathroom. So I would end up having to go to the bathroom. Yeah. And I could just see me sitting there just constantly looking. And then I would freak out if I saw men's shoes. Yeah, I would too. Well, you know me, I would go in there and immediately start drinking. So I would definitely have to go to the bathroom. But hopefully I would have a good buzz by then, and I would be like, hey, I heard about you. You're not supposed to be in here. This is the women's restroom. And he would give me the stank eye and disappear, like the lady said. Oh,
goodness.
So yeah, it was a good time.
It was beautiful outside
Oh my
too,
gosh,
which
the
is
weather was
perfect.
awesome.
Yeah, it was perfect. So that really worked
We had
out.
a full moon, which you got a picture of that too.
I did,
right?
and that's definitely I'm going to definitely put that on the Facebook page because that is probably one of the best pictures I've ever taken in my life.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, so it was really cool.
That was in the cemetery.
Yes. And I got a few pictures of some gravestones and stuff that I'll put again on the Facebook page. And unfortunately, I was trying not to trip.
Yeah.
So I did not hear anything about the gravestones. I was not listening at all to him when he was talking about the gravestones and what they were from. The only thing I heard was I guess there was a flood that went through there, and the fact of how close the gravestones were to the road kind of freaked me out a little. You know, it was just weird.
Yeah.
I'd never seen anything like that. They were very close, and I'm not sure if I got any pictures of that either, but yeah, it was laid out very weird, and I don't know. I didn't feel anything.
Well, yeah, I think, and I didn't catch all of it either, but there was a huge flood there at one point.
Right, like she said, bodies were popping up from the ground and shit. Like everything was underwater.
Those headstones, that might not be where they started out at.
Oh, so they could be anywhere.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's awful.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, it was very interesting. One thing, and again, it was very dark, and I was trying not to trip, and I had something going on with my shoulder, so I was kind of distracted anyway. So I didn't take many notes, but the Historical Society, Charles Manson stayed there.
They did? Or he did?
Yes. Yeah, he was from, I believe, and I could be totally wrong, but I believe he was from Chicago or around there, so he would come to Indiana a lot, and he got arrested in Indiana one time on a warrant, I believe, and he had escaped from a prison in Indiana, and they caught him in Noblesville, and they put him in that jail that we were standing outside of. So yeah, Charles freaking Manson was staying there for a little bit. And the head of the KKK also stayed there, which I thought was freaking nuts. And a lot of stories about people hanging themselves in there, which I thought was kind of crazy, and wondered what that was about. You know, why everyone, one, chose to kill themselves there, and two, they all did it by hanging, and that's really weird.
Well, I think that in most jails, and especially maybe not, back in the day, but now they don't allow you to have anything that you could hang yourself with. I think because she even said that she doesn't understand why they didn't take their belts.
Right.
They didn't take their belts, so they hung themselves with it. I think if they didn't take everyone's belts, or at whatever prison that you're in, there would be a lot more hangings.
Probably, but I mean, these guys, like, one guy hung himself with his t-shirt. Another guy hung himself with a what was it, sheet or something?
I don't remember that.
Well, my point is, like there may be something in there telling them to hang themselves, because
I didn't get that.
No,
because if you are doing something bad that you're not supposed to do and you get caught, like I said, I think a lot more people, if they had the opportunity, would hang themselves.
That one kid was like 19 years old, and he got arrested for like petty theft. Like, nothing was really going to happen to him that much. I mean, not enough to hang yourself. It just sounded really weird.
And you don't know what was wrong with him, too.
No, yeah, I guess you're right, yeah. I thought that was very weird that, one, a lot of people killed themselves there, and two, they did it the same way. It was the same thing time after time, I just thought that was kind of weird. But yeah, that was one of the places that I took notes on. And the other one was like the very last place, where she said that it was supposed to be like a family place, like kind of like a family restaurant, but because of it was like right by a railroad, and because of all of the, was it miners? It wouldn't be miners, would it? Like railroad workers, maybe? just in general.
Something, something along those lines.
But those guys kind of took the place over, and then it became a place for self-employed ladies, which I thought was fantastic. How she was referring to them.
Yeah. There was a building that was catty-cornered from it that was for self-employed ladies.
Right.
And then this restaurant, they wanted it to be part of it for family and part of it for the workers or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, they all kind of took it over, the ladies and the men, so they kind of forced the family part out.
Well, I mean, if you're those women like catty-cornered across from a place where guys are drinking and they have the money, and you're gonna head right over there, and
definitely.
heck yeah, you're gonna take it over.
Definitely.
But yeah, well, she said that it was a place like that during Prohibition, and there's a spot where two buildings are extremely close together, and they had like a kick plate behind the bar, so they put those bottles of hooch behind there. Man, I want to be there when they knock those buildings down and see all those bottles. I want to see all those bottles.
Yeah.
That would be the coolest shit. That would be from Prohibition alcohol bottles.
Yeah.
That would be, oh my gosh, I would love to see that. I want one of those bottles so bad. But I thought that was like one of the coolest things that I heard on that whole tour. I was like, oh my gosh, there are bottles behind the wall. But yeah, those were really the only notes that I took from it.
There were two things that I thought, there was one thing that it creeped me out and I got chills. But in the cemetery, I think I might have been poked.
I know.
But it was so light and so fast that I don't know if I really was or not.
But you definitely felt something.
I felt something. I had my hand kind of on my hip, so my elbow was kind of like sticking out.
Yeah.
And it felt like someone touched their finger onto the end of my elbow.
Do you think maybe a bug may have ran into you or something?
No, it wasn't like that. It was literally like if you poke someone with your finger.
That's weird.
And I look behind me and there's no one around me and I'm like, I wonder, I don't know.
Ew,
but it wasn't
creepy.
like, earth shattering or anything like that. And I don't know if that's what it was or, I might have had a muscle spasm or something. I don't know.
Yeah, possibly. I guess.
But that residential house, when she described what that lady saw.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
That gave me chills.
And then, I mean, not that it has anything to do with it, but the cat that came up and like
we
joined
had a
the
visitor.
Group. Yeah, it was it was super cute, fat cat. But yeah, that really creeped me out, and I kept looking in there, and people live in there.
I know.
And they're talking about creatures and like wingspans.
It was a black creature with red eyes and a wingspan of what'd she say?
I think 6 feet. Yeah.
I was like, what?
I know, that is creepy.
Could you imagine? It was in her daughter's bedroom.
No.
So the door was shut. She heard noises, so she goes in there, and it's there.
Yeah, and her daughter wasn't there that night.
No.
So whatever she saw. And it was kind of funny because the tour group leader was saying that she's like, I really don't include this in the ghost walk because it's not a ghost, it's not a haunted house, it's a paranormal, it's out of the norm house. And I was like, ooh, like, what is that? And then she says that and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Well, needless to say, the lady that saw it immediately left and never went back.
Yeah, well, she said she would go back during the day.
Yeah,
but she never stayed there
and never
again.
by herself.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah, that was creepy.
I don't know if I could go back in, period. I don't care what time of day it is.
Yeah, if I saw, I would be so scared.
I know.
Yeah, I don't know if I could do that.
I don't know. I would probably be bawling.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But no, it was good. I liked it.
Yeah, it was really fun. It was very informative, and I think the jail was my favorite part. I really liked, and like you said, I want to go in there. Mm-hmm. Big time. I want to go and see what's inside there.
Well, my friend Amy went with us, and when we first get there, we're kind of looking around the town a little bit, and she's like, "Oh, I want to go there, and I want to go there." And I swear, almost every single place she said she wanted to go, we stopped at on our tour, and I'm like, okay.
Haunted place. Well, honestly, I mean, it's a freaking antique store, which we love.
Yeah.
A bar, which, hello,
Yeah.
we love. And yeah, I want to go there too. And Amy is going to be on our podcast next week, hopefully,
Yes.
right?
Yes, that's what she said. We'll see how that actually turns out.
Which I found out she does not listen last night. I'm very disappointed.
Well, yeah. I think she doesn't do a lot of any of that. She hardly watches TV.
Oh, not a media kind of gal?
No, she's one of those. She's always doing something.
Oh.
Whether it's cleaning the kitchen or she deals with her family quite a bit, her kids and
she
stuff.
She talks on the phone a lot, doesn't she?
She talks on the phone a lot.
Yeah. Because that's my favorite time to listen to podcasts is when I'm cleaning the kitchen or, because I just have someone else in my ear, know, and like not thinking about the freaking dirty dish that I'm cleaning.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's just the kind of person she is. I mean, I could sit there and say, "Have you ever seen this movie?" And almost every single time it's no.
No, I'm seriously kidding.
I know. But when we first started posting, she was listening to it a little bit. But
and she likes all the stuff on the Facebook page, I think, too. So
yeah, she does.
All right, she's off the hook a little.
Yeah. So hopefully she'll be here next Friday telling her ghost stories because she's got some good ones.
She does. She was talking about a couple last night that and I love hearing new ghost stories, especially from a person that it happened to. Because she was talking about, I guess her daughter had a imaginary friend when she was little that she didn't really think was imaginary. So,
and she didn't even tell you the good one.
Okay, well I don't want to hear, but don't tell me.
I'm not telling you anything.
But but yeah, get her to come over here to next week.
I will bug her all week long.
Okay, good deal.
And I'll have her come over earlier and give her some wine or something.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
Yeah,
I am all about it. All right. I also actually had another thing to talk about. Okay, so last week I had mentioned to you how there was nothing going on in the news and I had nothing to talk about at the beginning of the podcast, except for this one thing that didn't turn out the way I thought it was.
Are you talking about the tomb?
Yeah, the sarcophagus.
Yes, I know exactly what you're going to say.
Okay, so last week, they had unearthed a mysterious sarcophagus in Egypt, and they had opened it, and it was full of goo. And I was like, oh my gosh, whoever was in this thing was cursed and their body melted and it's the creepiest thing ever. Well, no, that's not what happened at all. I guess there was a small leak in the coffin and it did turn to mush, but it was just natural yuckiness.
Yes. Nasty.
So yeah, it was not what I had thought it was. So I decided not to talk about it last week. So in the news this week, there are actually people signing a petition to drink whatever goo
because it has magical, mystical proproperties.
Fuck that. No, it doesn't.
Got disease.
Oh my gosh. Ew. It has got dead human. Dead, really old dead human. Oh,
gosh,
don't drink
could
that.
you imagine the bacteria that's floating around in there?
Could you imagine the stench?
Oh, and they want to drink it.
They want to... No. No.
That is the most... I read that and I was like, are you freaking kidding me?
Seriously.
You know, I know there's lots and lots of stupid people out in the world, but it's like you hear these stories and it's like, could they get any worse?
I know.
And then they want to drink dead people's sludge. And I don't understand.
Oh my gosh, I know.
It's just...
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And you just really, I want to know what's wrong with these people. I really do. Oh my gosh, it's insane. I did see something on, speaking of insane people, sorry, flat earthers, but I saw a post on Facebook that said, so we've talked about round earth and we've talked about flat earth, but what about hot dog shaped earth? Has anyone brought this up?
Oh my gosh. I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh
Not
my
at
gosh.
all.
I know. That would be so funny, though. That's fucking awesome. Goodness gracious. Okay. So, what did you do this week?
I did skinwalkers. I've heard quite a few stories recently about these, and they scare me to death.
Fuck yeah, they're scary.
It's so creepy. So I decided to do my story about it too, because like I said, it's creepy. So I've got definitions of what a skinwalker actually is.
Okay.
Okay, so a skinwalker is a person with the ability to transform into any different type of animal at will.
Okay, so that's fucking scary all in itself.
Yes.
That's that mimicking that I don't particularly like.
Yeah. They are most frequently seen as coyotes, wolves, foxes, eagles, owls, or crows. Some can also steal the faces of different people and it could appear as someone you know.
No.
That is bad.
That scares me.
Yes. If you accidentally lock eyes with a skinwalker, they can absorb themselves into your body and take control of your actions.
I don't like that either.
Rare skinwalkers can also have the ability to enchant the powder of corpses and use the substance as a poison dust on victims.
I've heard that before.
The legend of the skinwalkers originates from the Navajo, southwestern Native American tribe, and I'm going to mess this up just so you know. In the Navajo language, the word skinwalker is Yi Naglashiend. I know I did not pronounce that right.
That sounds right to me.
Okay. Which translates to he who walks on all fours.
Oh, okay. That's creepy.
Yes.
So, okay, one thing.
What did I do?
No, it's not you.
Oh, uh-huh.
So I told you I went to Mackinac Island last weekend or weekend before that, whatever. And Joel had found a necklace that he really liked there. But he didn't say anything while we were there, so we didn't get it for him. But he told me when we got back, he was like, there was this necklace there that I really like. It had this creature on it. And I was like, oh, that sounds awesome. What is it? So I found it, and I got it for him. And he was like, so what does this mean? And I was like, I don't know. Let's find out. So I look it up. It's a fertility god. And the necklace is supposed to attract women.
Oh, no.
And I got it for my 14-year-old son. And he wears it all the time. He loves it.
I'm going to be a great aunt.
No.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I thought I'd tell you that because it was really funny. So go ahead.
Oh, that's funny.
Great aunt.
Nobody needs to know about that part.
No.
Just
He just likes the necklace.
You can
That's
just
all it
make
is.
up what it is.
Okay.
Skinwalkers have only entered the public discourse relatively recently compared to other phenomenon. In 1996, a team of scientists ventured to a Utah ranch to investigate a series of bizarre phenomenon. I'm wondering if that's the Skinwalker Ranch.
I bet it is.
I'm thinking it is, but I don't know. If their powers weren't enough, skinwalkers are also said to be able to run incredibly long distances, some say over 200 miles in one evening.
What?
Yeah.
Ew, on all fours?
I guess.
Oh my gosh, it's so creepy.
Skinwalkers have a tendency to hang around graveyards and can dig up graves at an impossibly fast speed.
Okay, no.
Yeah.
That's not.
That's where they get their dust from.
Ooh.
While they can take many forms, many people who see them today describe them as hollowed out dog-like animals.
What do you mean hollowed out?
What I picture is, when someone like starves themselves or whatever, they're just like,
yeah,
gaunt, or that's what I think of. I don't know if that's actually what it means or not, but
okay, that makes sense.
skinwalkers are said to recruit more skinwalkers themselves. There is some dispute in how this happens, but some say that there is an official ceremony and that skinwalkers only take their form with a gathering of people and specific chants.
What? There's people that know about this?
Apparently.
Oh, I'm so confused.
Because I think, a skinwalker is a person.
What?
Yeah.
How? I thought it was some sort of creature. Or is it a person with, like, powers or something?
Yeah.
Ooh.
It's a person with the ability to transform into any...
Holy shit. I literally did not know that. I thought we were talking about a creature of some sort.
Like a Bigfoot or...
Well, it's honestly what I picture, and I'm sure you've seen the pictures online of this lanky, really skinny, kind of like, have you seen the Harry Potter with the werewolf?
Yeah.
Kind of like that.
Well, yeah, and I think the reason why because they're usually like tall and lanky,
Yeah.
is because they used to be a person.
Ooh.
So their dimensions are...
So how does one become a skinwalker? A ritual of some sort?
It says that they do an official ceremony, that skinwalkers only take their form with a gathering of people and specific chants.
Oh, that's so weird.
When I think the first time I heard of a skinwalker, and of course it was, a Native American thing.
Right.
And I might be confused, but I could have swore in that story I heard that they take an actual animal's pelt and drape it over themselves, and then they do some kind of chant or whatever, and it turns them into that animal.
That's crazy.
With all their advantages, it is said that you can kill a skinwalker if you call them by their true human name. Skinwalkers are most commonly encountered near native reservations. Though they have all been seen all over the United States, Utah is the most famous place that they've been.
Huh.
Some people believe the rake, which is commonly encountered in the Northeast, is similar to a skinwalker. Have you ever heard of a rake?
No.
You need to look it up online because they're creepy.
Okay.
So that's kind of what skinwalkers are.
Okay.
And then I've got some stories. And all this stuff came from thoughtcatalog.com.
Okay.
The first story, are you looking that up?
I'm just looking up a picture. You can go ahead. I'm listening.
Okay, the first story is, my grandmother on my mother's side has always been very superstitious, for lack of a better word. She's not religious, but she does believe in a lot of paranormal stuff. Her mother was full-blooded Navajo, and her father was Irish. Either way, she's never been anywhere east of Montana, and she grew up in Nevada. One year, when I was in grade school, we went to visit her.
That's what I thought a skinwalker was. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, that's a rake.
That is the scariest fucking shit ever.
Yeah. Look at that one, where it looks like it's backwards.
Oh my gosh. So that's not a skinwalker.
No.
That's different.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought a skinwalker was. And that's what I picked. And I mean, that was the werewolf thing on Harry Potter was the closest thing that I could think of.
Oh, yeah.
To that.
No, the skinwalker, it usually looks like some kind of weird animal that doesn't look right.
Can I look those up too?
Probably.
Let's see.
Well, if you think about it, I mean, it says they look like hollowed out dog-like animals, but they can be seen as coyotes, wolves, foxes, eagles, owls, or crows. So
whatever animal they choose, that's what they're going to look like.
Yeah. Or kind of look like.
That's so crazy. I've never heard of this before. I mean, I've heard of them, but I've never thought about it, I guess. So I will post some pictures of these on the Facebook page Tuesday when this comes out. Hopefully it'll be Tuesday.
And maybe I can look up some stories about rakes.
Yeah.
And see what they say and kind of, compare to the skinwalkers.
Yeah, that would be.
All right, I'm going to start my story over again since you messed me up. So. Are you going to listen now?
Yeah.
Okay. My grandmother, on my mother's side, has always been very superstitious, for lack of a better word. She's not religious, but she does believe in a lot of paranormal stuff. Her mother was full-blooded Navajo, and her father was Irish. Either way, she's never been anywhere east of Montana, and she grew up in Nevada. One year, when I was in grade school, we went to visit her. Most of the visit was pretty uneventful, typical boring old people stuff, except she always kept her curtains drawn shut and would always peek out the window, and when someone asked what she was doing, she would simply reply, and I'm not going to be able to say this again. This one's kind of different, though. Yen old Lucy is watching me.
Ooh, what's that?
I don't know. This went on for nearly the entire visit until a few days before we were due to leave. My grandma and my then baby brother, he's 19 now, LOL, were in the front yard that evening planting flowers when all of a sudden my grandmother starts shouting, "Insert little brother's name here. Get away from that creature. It's not safe." Of course, being in Nevada, we all assumed that my brother had found a scorpion or a rattlesnake, so we all ran outside to see my grandmother clutching my little brother and shaking in terror against the side of the house. Standing out in the yard was a large, black, Great Dane-sized dog. It was staring at my grandmother with an intensity I'd never seen before. It looked up at us, gave a little huff, and bounded off. I don't remember if it moved unusually fast or not, but do remember it had really deep yellow eyes. When my mother asked my grandmother what had happened, she kept repeating, "The yin old douchey has found me." She moved a couple weeks after that.
That's creepy.
My uncle and cousin saw a large deer on the side of the road. When they got closer, it hopped over the fence like a bipedal man. One time driving back from Gallup, I don't know what that is, my dad saw an old Navajo woman walking on the side of the road, and when he slowed to offer her a ride, she took off into the plains, quickly with inhuman speed.
Ooh.
Once when I was a kid, my family was at my aunt's house, which is in a rural, secluded area, when we were toyed with by a few entities. They would make animal noises, and when we looked to the direction from which the noises were coming, they would turn a flashlight on and off. The noises would come from all directions, in increasingly shorter succession. Usually, when I'm there on the reservation visiting, alone at night, I will feel the presence of evil and dread. Panic and paranoia will wash over me, and as sudden as it comes, it will leave. My uncle is Mexican and Native American. This happened in the Mojave Desert in Southern California. I think I started a new story
I think you
again.
did too, and I wanted to say, what was the last thing you said?
When they're on the reservation alone at night, they'll feel a presence of evil and dread, panic and paranoia.
So nothing really happens. They just like that feeling.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I hate that. When you don't know why you're feeling something, but you are, and you're like, am I supposed to be scared?
I don't do that.
No?
No.
Gosh, I do that. I do that all the time. Like, just this feeling will come over me, and you're just like, why? Like, something is affecting me, but I don't know what it is, and I can't see anything that it is. That's crazy.
The next one is, my uncle is Mexican and Native American. This happened in the Mojave Desert in Southern California. He was driving around with his girlfriend late at night, and they saw something that looked like a huge black dog on the side of the road. He slowed down, and the dog began crossing the road. Instead of walking like a normal dog would, this thing moved like a toy rocking horse.
What?
He said it stopped in the middle of the road and stared right at them, and its eyes had a red glow. My uncle is the most badass person I know, and it scared the crap out of him.
Whoa.
I don't understand that description.
Moving like a rocking horse?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird. Unless it was just standing there just kind of...
Moving back and forth.
Yeah, like in a trance or something.
Yeah, but it said that he was...
Looking at him?
Walking. Yeah, it says instead of walking like a normal dog would, this thing moved like a toy rocking horse.
Might be that jerky...
Ew, I don't like
Again,
that.
they were talking about that last night with that woman.
Yes.
And I did not get that at first because she said it was stop motion.
Yeah.
And then, you were like, that's a turkey. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh. That is the creepiest thing.
Ugh,
So maybe the fucking dog was doing the creepy stop motion jerky movements. Because you know how sometimes a rocking horse will kind of be, if it's not really done very well, it's kind
it's
of
not really smooth or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
It could be that jerky movement, especially if it's walking and it's looking at them. A rocking horse does not describe that very well.
No.
So that's the only thing that I can actually think of that it would be talking about, like that jerky, like kind of like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay, my next story. So this happened about 12 years ago. My family owns a farm in the heart of an Indian reservation. One winter I was home for Christmas taking care of the farm while my parents were away Christmas shopping. As I was home by myself, way late in the night, and I hear all our cows freaking out. I knew it had to be the wild dogs that are rampant in the area. So I throw on some boots, grab a shotgun, load it up, and head out to the field. This was a perfect scenario for a horror movie. It was cloudy, but there was a full moon, and it was breaking through the clouds just right to light up all the snow. I ran out into the middle of the field, and just in time I see two dogs. They were standing up facing each other and fighting. I think, perfect 2 for 1. So I pump a shell into the chamber of my 12 gauge. It says Mr. 12 gauge, but I don't know why. And then it happened. The two dogs heard the rack. They both stopped, looked over at me, and ran away on their back legs.
No!
Immediately I froze, and every ghost story about skinwalkers and all the other native legends I grew up with flew through my mind. Keep in mind, I am a white guy, and up until then, these were all just boogeyman stories the native kids tell to scare us. That night, they became real to me.
Oh my gosh.
Wouldn't that be so weird?
I wouldn't know whether to freak out or laugh.
I know.
Because, I mean, honestly, it would be fucking hilarious. But you'd be so freaked out at that moment you couldn't laugh.
I don't think I would laugh.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what I would do, but I don't think I would laugh.
Yeah, I think I would just be like, you wouldn't know what to do. And any of these situations, I mean, you just react.
I know probably what would come out of my mouth. What the fuck?
What the fuck?
That's what would come out of my mouth. Yes. I know it. Okay. Here's my next story. I was spending a month with my cousins at my grandma's house. It was August, and my cousins' ages ranged from 10 to 15, and I was the oldest, being 15. I was staying with a 10, 13, and 14-year-old. We stayed up telling scary stories often, but one night, a few weeks in, we decided to make a campfire out back. My grandma's house is in a rural suburb. The neighbors aren't too far when you're driving down the road to their house, but in the backyard, it's thick forest with man-made paths through it. Each house is on a hill, so only part of the basement was actually underground. That isn't important until later, though. So we're towards the east side of her yard, in a smallish patch of open land. You couldn't see the neighboring yards from there, and there was probably 3/4 of a mile to each side of us that belonged to my grandma. It was maybe 11 at night, and we were playing Truth or Dare after telling scary stories. And my 14-year-old cousin dared me and the 13-year-old to go walk through the paths for 10 minutes or so. I said yes right away, as I wasn't easily scared and rather level-headed, but my younger cousin was a bit more hesitant. We didn't bring a flashlight because it wasn't pitch dark yet, and we could see enough to not die. We were walking through the paths for about 5 minutes and could barely see the fire through the trees when we decided to turn. In the middle of the path was a large dog-like creature hunched over with its front hands an inch from the ground. What I remembered most was how its eyes were so fucking bright white, and it was a humanoid dog shape with a human-like head, but a dog-like body, but human hands and feet. It looked right at us, and I know I was paralyzed with fear as it dashed away the opposite way from us, towards a creek that ran through the yard. Eventually, my cousin and I screamed bloody effing murder, and the other cousins and my grandma ran to us. I don't remember much here because I was really disoriented and I couldn't think properly, but I did wake up in bed, so I assume that I was brought up to the house. All the kids slept in the basement in a big room with sliding glass doors to the outside, as the room was on the side that wasn't underground. My bed was pressed against a big glass window, and I could see my cousins playing outside down below. The house is in Michigan, so it gets slightly chilly even in the end of August, and there was a slight breeze, so I put on a jacket and ran to join them outside, skipping breakfast, not wanting to miss out on anything fun. When I got down, I could tell they weren't playing, but rather running to get my grandma. Her dogs, both of them, were dead, ripped up. That night, we went to bed early. I woke up at maybe 2 in the morning because I felt something hit my head. My cousins were all sitting on the double bed opposite me on the other side of the room. There was one bunk bed and 2 double beds. The double beds for me and my 14-year-old cousin. They were being quiet and staring at me. The 13-year-old nodded his head toward the window. I froze. They all looked afraid. I turned my head slightly to the side, and I saw a really messed up looking face pressed to the window with gaping eyes looking down at me. I screamed so fucking loud and I bolted. My grandma called the police after I told her what happened, and they found nothing. I went home after that, and I have never been there during the night again.
Oh my gosh, I wouldn't be there anytime. That is creepy. Anything pressed up against your window in the middle of the night?
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
no, that's
No.
creepy. Let alone seeing something unnatural. Ugh, gosh.
I don't like how they describe the face, though.
What do
They
you
don't
mean?
give any detail. They just say a really messed up looking face.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what did it look like?
Yeah, maybe it's impossible to describe.
All right. Here's my next one. In July 2004, near Gallup, New Mexico, I had my first and only encounter with a skinwalker.
That makes sense. That's a town. You said it in another story.
Oh.
Gallup, New Mexico.
I've never heard of it before.
Oh, it's Route 66. It's Route 66.
I
Okay, go ahead.
remember reading it in the other story, but it kind of sounded...
Well, they didn't
weird.
say Gallup, New Mexico. They just said Gallup, like we were supposed to know what that is. And
Oh.
like we have mentioned before, we don't do geography, so we were like, what the fuck is Gallup? And now, since you said Gallup, New Mexico, I know that's in the song Route 66. So
Okay.
it's on there.
Okay. In July 2004, near Gallup, New Mexico, I had my first and only encounter with a skinwalker. Before this, I used to say, I'll believe it when I see it. Well, I'm a believer now.
Oh, shit.
What I saw was not full human nor full animal.
Oh, that's creepy.
I was moving and had just completed the cleaning and was with my 10-year-old son. We had called it a night and were headed to our new place. As we walked out the front door, I saw a figure move from behind my neighbor's car to a nearby tree that stood between our apartments. It didn't have red glowing eyes, snarling teeth, or a rotten smell. It did move quickly, but not quick enough to avoid the light from a nearby light post and the porch lights. It didn't look at me or come toward me. It moved as if trying to avoid being seen. I was within 15 feet of it, but I did not look back to fully inspect it. What I saw was a wolf-like animal that sort of resembled the beast in Beauty and the Beast, just not cartoonish. It had brown fur that completely covered it. It wasn't a pelt. It was a very large wolf. It didn't have any human traits except that it walked on its hind legs. It cowered behind the tree as we got into our vehicle. When we got in, I asked my son, "Did you see that?" Thankfully, he hadn't. My brother-in-law insists that it wasn't a skinwalker because I would have never seen it. To this day, I can picture what it looked like, know they exist, and pray I never encounter one again.
God, if you saw the beast in real life.
Ah,
No.
no.
That would be so fucking scary.
I don't know. And that one's kind of different than the other ones because
Yeah.
it was like trying not to be seen.
Well, well, that one guy said if it was a skinwalker, you wouldn't see it. So maybe they do that all the time.
Yeah, that's true. All right, here's my next one. This didn't happen to me, but a very close friend of mine. I've heard a lot about coyotes and skinwalkers and had a weird experience or two with coyotes. Creepiest was waking up to my sleeping bag being surrounded in paw prints without ever hearing them during the night.
No.
But never anything paranormal, so to speak. Patrick's story, however, kept me from going back to a favorite backcountry secret stash. He was leaving the area one morning, had been camping there a couple days, and said there was a coyote that always seemed to be close by, like in his peripheral vision, but never overt. He loaded up his truck and started to drive down the washout to the fire road. At the end of the wash, he could see the coyote following him. When he pulled out onto the road, it was running next to him. Now he was freaked out, so he sped up. He said he was going 35 or so, and it was running along beside him. Definitely not possible. When he looked back, the coyote was running on 2 legs and was wearing what Patrick said looked like buckskin pants. I'm sorry. An instant later, it was a person wearing a coyote fur keeping pace with his truck. When he looked again, it was gone. We never went back to that grove after that. I'm sorry, that just makes me It probably wouldn't be funny if you were living it.
But it's funny.
A coyote running on 2 legs with pants on.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that poor man.
Do you want me to read any more? Let's see.
Why don't you read one more? We're good. Why don't you read one more, and then I will talk about mine, because mine really isn't that long. So
Okay. This one, actually, my ink hadn't run out yet, so I actually have a title for it.
Oh, okay.
It's titled, It Walked Up and Down the Ramp All Night. I was staying at my grandpa's trailer in Arizona for a couple of days with my mom and dad and 2 brothers. I forget why we went out there, but it had to be important because my dad never tagged along with us out there. Anyways, come nighttime and everyone is asleep except me. I'm watching Nickelodeon on the TV in the living room when I hear footsteps walking up to the front porch. Since my grandpa was up there in years, he had a long wooden ramp to his door. I was expecting something to come to the door and knock, but nothing happened except that it kept walking up and down the ramp. My grandpa lived about 25 minutes away from the nearest town, and the only neighbors around are other family members. I remember being really scared at this point and couldn't think straight. My brothers were asleep in the living room on the couches near me, and I couldn't force myself to wake them up. Instead, I calmly walked to the back bedroom where my mom and dad are asleep. I lay down on the floor and try to sleep. Meanwhile, whatever is walking around outside is still doing its thing. After a couple of minutes, I hear my mom attempt to wake up my dad and see if he can hear it. This relieves me because I thought she was asleep the whole time. I tell her I hear it too, and we lay there and listen. My dad is not the best at being coherent after sleep, and he falls back to sleep right away. It stops after a couple minutes. The next night, the same thing happens, except it's coming up to the back door. I freak out again, and this time just go to the back bedroom and lay down and go to sleep. That's all I remember. I also forgot to mention a weird thing my grandpa said that made sense later. Before turning into sleep, and he said something like, "Don't pay attention to anything you hear at night. You're safe inside."
Oh,
I should also mention that the next day I remember seeing boot prints and paw prints in the sand by the ramp.
Oh my God. Yeah, anything like walking back and forth outside your house and you can hear it, that's creepy.
I would have to look out the window. I would have to know where the noise was coming from and what it was.
Oh my gosh, it's so scary though. Okay, so this week I was not prepared at all. So I have people describe terrifying encounters with weird strangers. So just weird freaking people. Again, proving why I don't go out by myself. Mm-hmm. Okay, first one, and I got these from Ranker, obviously, or maybe it was Reddit. I don't know, one of those, but they've got authors. This is from a deleted user. A few years ago, I was visiting my girlfriend who had just moved to New York. We had a long, wonderful weekend, but it came to an end. We were on the subway, and it finally got to her stop. I was going to stay on the subway to head to a bus station. As my girlfriend gets up, so does a large male passenger. She gets up to the door, and he stands right behind her. I wave goodbye, and she steps off the train. Then he, the large male passenger, looks at me with a demonic smile, points at my girlfriend's back, and mouths the words, "I'm going to kill her." I jump up and try to get to the door, but it's closed by the time I got there. I tried desperately to call the police, but can't get a signal. At the next stop, I bound through the station to the surface where I called my girlfriend. She was fine, but freaked out. I ran 14 blocks to her place to stay with her all night rather than going home.
Oh my gosh.
I know. Okay. Next one is from Jake0818. I was out hunting in northern Ontario with no roads except for logging roads, which I'm not sure what that is. I'm assuming like country back roads.
Yeah, I guess.
I was late on the bear season, so no one was out hunting in my quadrant. I found a nice campsite along the side of the river and hunted from there. On the second day of my hunt, I came across bear tracks. After tracking it for 2 hours, I eventually turned back around. This was when shit got very fucking weird. I always track on one side of the tracks and return on the other. About 200 meters down the east side of the tracks, I ran into another human footprint, which just disappeared across the trail and into the woods on the west. My dog didn't seem to smell anything, so I returned to camp with minimal concern. I got back to camp around 7:30 at night and made a quick dinner and had a cigar by the camp. Around 12 midnight, I heard a snap of a branch. After hunting for 20 years, I know only two things snap branches: bears and humans. I grabbed my firearm and flashlight and went out after the noise. Every 100 yards, I would scan with the flashlight. My dog freaked and started growling and advancing into the woods slowly. I pulled back on my leash to slow his advance and switch on my flashlight. I see two pairs of eyes looking right at me. They stared for about 5 seconds and disappeared into the woods. On the walk back, I felt anxious, scared, and uncomfortable, like I could feel someone watching me. The next night, the same thing happened. My dog went wild, like I have never seen him, whimpering, growling, and very clearly anxious. At this point, I was terrified and didn't go hunting that day and didn't close my eyes once. That night, I sat up with my flashlight, constantly scanning the tree line. I guess I dozed off around 1 a.m. and woke up again at 3, sweating, confused, and very scared. I scanned the forest, and just barely visible about 25 yards in the forest, there was a man and his dog looking right at me. I started to approach him, shouting to him. I got about 10 feet away, and he looked awfully disheveled and stank. But the worst part was that he just stared and smiled. His eyes showed zero emotion and whispered, "Good night."
Yeah.
I ran back to my tent, packed it into my pack, and loaded it onto the trailer and drove out of there.
What the hell?
Yeah, that was it. That's so creepy.
Why are people like that?
I don't know. And that's what's so fascinating about these stories and all these encounters, and you don't know what these people are thinking, and it's the scariest shit ever. Okay, next one is from Bridget Bain. When I was a kid, we'd go to these beach cabins in Maryland, right by the Chesapeake Bay. They were small and rustic with basic comforts and no amenities. There were 2 bedrooms and a cot in the kitchen, and my siblings and I rotated on the cot. A small tradition was that my mom would have a hot cup of tea before bed in our summer jammies, which was on our way of relaxing while everyone else went off to read or listen to music. In one night, I settled on the cot when she picked up a tea kettle to fill it. Out of the corner of my eye, I see her flinch and then say in a steady voice, "What are you doing here?" My head whipped over to the kitchenette to see her looking out the window. Then she jumped back and started screaming for my father. My dad ran from the back bedroom and saw my mom point towards the left side of the house. He burst out the door. I was 10 years old, so I ran under my parents' bed. I still remember the smell of the old wood and the feel of my teddy bear shielding me from whatever the hell was going on. I remember seeing my 14-year-old brother, then a medium-ranking karate student, following my dad out of the cabin at full speed. My father, a former Army sergeant, and MP, there's that MP again.
Military police, that's got to be what it is.
Let us know if we're wrong. With a Bronze Star, managed to tackle the guy that had been peeping into our kitchen window. He put him in an elbow lock, face down to the ground, with my brother standing over both of them, while my mom ran to call the police. I remember hearing the guy talking when my mom called the police. He was saying things like, "The Ouija board told me, I want the devil to suck my brains out. Satan is in the cabin. I have to get to cabin 10. The devil wants me to kill myself," and so on. We were in cabin 3, over half a mile from where he apparently intended to meet the devil. My dad kept a grip on him for probably a good 15 minutes until the cops showed up, and the first thing out of one of the cops' mouth was, "Jamie, wouldn't they let you out?" Jamie had been released from jail just 2 weeks earlier for arson, and guess where he was standing when my mom was at the sink in the kitchen? Right beside the cabin's propane tank. That's scary.
Yeah.
This is also from a deleted user. I worked at a campground. Why? Everyone's camping. Stay out of the woods. Stay out of the woods. I worked at a campground on the night shift from 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. I would bring in my PS2 game a good portion of the night, only having to deal with 1 or 2 people on busy nights. It was just me in this little 8x8 shack with nothing around but darkness. My first week there, the other third shift guy who was quitting told me about this payphone a few feet from the shack where I worked. He said it rang every night at 4:17 a.m. just once. It was probably just an automated test call, he guessed. He'd never answered it himself. It was in the middle of the summer, so most nights I had the windows closed so I couldn't hear the payphone go off. Mid-August, I started leaving the windows open during the night. Sure enough, at 4:17 a.m. every morning, the phone would ring just once. The ring even sounded creepy, like the payphone was submerged in water. One night, I got up the nerve to answer it. I set the alarm for 4:15 and would go wait at the phone until it rang. When it did, I answered it, but there was no sound, just dead air like someone was on the other line but wasn't answering. I said hello a few times and hung up. I did this every night for a week with the same results. I didn't think anything of it and left it alone after that for about a month. The first week of October, I decided to answer the phone once again. I set my alarm, and when the time came, I answered the phone. Hello? Hello? Then I heard what sounded like someone inhaling through clenched teeth. It sounded very rough and was like he had gargled gravel. He said my complete name, first, middle, and last. It was a voice I'd never heard. My voice caught in my throat and I hung up. I rattled some change into the payphone and hit star 69. The number had come from California, but I was in Indiana.
You have to be pretty fucked up to call a number every single day at the same time.
For apparently years.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's messed up. And again, what are these people thinking? Why? Do they have a mental illness that tells them, like, are they schizophrenic and these voices are telling them that they have to do this? It's just like people that have like OCD and they have to do certain things like a certain number of times or whatever before. It's just all in your head.
And how did they know this guy's name?
I don't know. I don't know. That's weird.
I don't like that.
No. Next one is from Devin302. My mother works with mental patients. One night around 9 p.m., she told me she had to go to work because there was an emergency. Later, I get a call from her. She basically said my name, and before she could finish, the phone got pulled away from her. In this high-pitched, creepy voice, one of the physicians said, "Devin302. I assume she heard my name mentioned by my mom. "Devin302. Your mom isn't coming home tonight because I'm going to do something bad to her." Then she hung up. I started freaking out. My mom didn't call me back until 2 hours later. The woman ended up being arrested, but quickly released since she had a mental illness. It was creepy as hell and very unnerving.
Ooh, that would be horrible to be talking to your mom and she says that and then you don't hear from her.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be awful.
Can you imagine all the things going through your head about what's going on?
No. And especially when you're in that situation, your brain goes to places that you would never normally go, so you wouldn't know what the fuck was going on. Yeah, that would be scary. Okay, this one's from IP Volatile. I used to work for a group home taking care of kids with autism or developmental problems. The company had multiple group homes, but none of them were within a mile of each other, and they were all in the middle of farm country. Each had a driveway of about half a mile and was surrounded by nothing but open countryside. The locations were chosen specifically for this so that if a client were to escape, they would have to run through open field for quite some time.
One night about 2 a.m., I was working the graveyard shift with a coworker, and we noticed some headlights coming down the driveway. We thought it was an administrator coming to check up on us, so we started frantically running around doing our work. When we realized the headlights hadn't moved, I stepped outside and took a few steps down the driveway and noticed a white van about a quarter of the way down the driveway. It stayed there for about 7 to 8 minutes and then drove off. My coworker and I were kind of baffled and came to the conclusion that the person was just lost or had to stop to look at a map. 3 days later, a serial killer was caught in our area. He was known for picking up women on the exact road our group home was on, and he drove a white van. Ugh, could you imagine being that close to a fucking serial killer? No way, man. That would creep me out. Okay. This one's from Quads, Not Blades. So I spent about 6 months in Europe, mostly alone, but meeting up with friends here and there. I went to Amsterdam for a week at the beginning of my trip and 2 weeks at the end. Maybe 2 or 3 days before I was supposed to come back to the U.S., I planned a lovely day of getting really baked and walking to the enormous and lovely Vondelpark. Before continuing, I'm just going to say that Amsterdam is nothing like the movies. It's beautiful, full of canals, museums, bikers, swans, etc. It's just great. Anyway, so I got insanely high and began to trek to the park. On the way, this short dude who looked like a young Steve Buscemi walked past me going the opposite way, and I accidentally made eye contact. He stopped and wanted to talk to me, even though I told him I wasn't interested in conversation, then insisted that he walked me to the park to keep me safe. He asked me tons of questions and told me about himself while I kept insisting that I didn't want to talk and just wanted to go alone to meet my friends. After about a 40-minute walk of hell, we entered the park and I pointed to the nearest building and said I was meeting them inside. I said goodbye and ran into the building. I was inside sitting to the side of the front door for about 20 minutes when he came inside. He saw me and I saw him, and he quickly ran out the door. At that point, I was really upset and he was following me, and I stayed inside the building for another hour. I peeked outside through the window and saw him sitting on a bench directly outside the building. I told the woman working at the front counter that there was a man following me, and she asked if they knew any other exits or ways to get out of the park. At this point, my buzz is completely gone and replaced with cold apprehension. They directed me to a little side path that exited a small side street, which would quickly connect to the main street again, so I left through the back and went out that way. About halfway down this quiet cobblestone road outside the park, I suddenly heard pounding feet and then was grabbed from behind and slapped so hard I screamed and hit the ground. A couple walking together looked over, then kept walking. He yelled, "That's what you get for lying to me," then ran off, breathing hard. I started crying and ran to the main street, then began speed walking through the crowd back in the direction of my hostel. I was terrified and just kept walking faster and faster and faster. After a few minutes, I glanced over my shoulder and he was immediately behind me, walking in my footsteps. I almost threw up in panic and went into the first doorway I could find while he disappeared into the crowd. I begged the employees at the jewelry store to call the police, but they told me no. The police station was only a few blocks away and gave me really confusing directions.
What a bunch of assholes.
Seriously, don't go to Amsterdam.
Shit.
I asked the other customers if anyone would be willing to call the police because a man was chasing me, but everyone just ignored me. They asked me to leave, so I went outside and began walking again, but watched for streetcars. I walked casually for a few minutes, then just as a streetcar was pulling away, I leapt into it and rode back to the north part of the city. This was all really terrifying for me. Being a chubby, awkward girl from a nice suburb, I have never really been afraid of strange men before. When I got off the train, I had no idea where I was and just sat down and cried. After maybe 15 minutes, though, a walking tour went by, and at the end of it, there were these two geeky, maybe 16-year-old German boys who I'd met a few days before. They asked me to show them how a bong works at a cafe. They instantly recognized me and invited me to join the tour, which ended up being really fun. All in all, really terrifying afternoon, really fun evening. Sorry. God, so that guy was crazy. Poor girl. But yeah, don't go there, especially by yourself. Okay, this one is also from a deleted user. I had woken up early in the morning and after getting up was doing some housework when I decided to go back to bed, a usual routine for me. I quickly fell asleep on my stomach. After a while, I became aware that a male figure had walked through the curtains that divided the bedroom from the rest of our room. The figure then stands at the end of the bed before walking around to my side and staring at me. All the while I'm trying to grab my boyfriend's hand to wake him up, but I couldn't move. It was only after the figure was over me and I felt the weight on my chest that I was able to wake up and proceed to freak out. The worst part of it was I was able to open my eyes and see this gray, featureless figure wandering around our room. Ever since then, I can't sleep on my stomach and fear it was happening again. So I guess I was like sleep paralysis, right?
That's what it sounds like.
That's creepy. I don't know why that would be in a story with strangers, though. Mm-hmm. Okay, this is going to be my last one. It's pretty short. This one's from I Need Oxygen. Okay, I Need Oxygen. I live in a small house out in the country. You would really never find a place if you were specifically looking for it. One evening, I was sitting in my rocking chair smoking my pipe and drinking a beer, just having a relaxing time, when I hear a knock on the door. I opened the door to find a man who weighed roughly 300 pounds. He had severely burned body and appeared to have pulled out most of his hair. This man looks at me and asks in a terrifying, low, gruff voice, "Do you have a hacksaw I could borrow?"
Ah,
I gave him my hacksaw,
what?
shut the door and locked it, and cowered in my room for the rest of the evening. I do not know what he needed with my hacksaw, nor do I know what became of it or him.
What an idiot.
Oh my gosh. I don't know about that. That's crazy. Yeah, people creep me out. I'm not a crowds kind of person. So a lot of people just, I don't know about that.
Well, first of all, I wouldn't have opened the door.
Right.
So, and it's not, if I did, I wouldn't be giving anybody a hacksaw.
I want to know what the creepy dude was doing while the other guy was looking for his hacksaw. Like, was he just standing patiently and, like, looking at his phone? Like, what, you know what I mean? What was he doing?
I don't know. That's weird.
That is weird. Okay, so those are mine. I just had a few about weird strangers, and I might read the rest later or something. I don't know. Do you want me to talk about the diet thing now?
Yeah.
Okay. So, apparently neither one of us have been doing very good. I don't think I've been doing anything out of the norm for me, really. But I did see and it's on YouTube, and you're going to have to look it up yourself because I really don't remember what it said. I was just looking for my specific thing. But it has, like, different types of weight that people carry and, like, where it is on your body. And, you know, they're saying, like, if you carry weight in your stomach or in your hips or something, it's this kind of weight gain, and if it's in your arms and your face, it's this kind, or, you know, whatever. So mine is stress weight, so I carry it all in my stomach basically, and there's like, and it pinpointed me really well. And it was like, you drink too much coffee, which is totally true. I drink coffee all day every day. And it was like, you get very little sleep, and it's not quality sleep, which is totally me.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, and so I'm supposed to do yoga. That's what my thing is supposed to be. Like, what types of exercise for what type of weight gain,
Yeah.
or what type of weight you're carrying already. So look that up. It kind of, I mean, it made sense to me. So I'm going to try it. I've done it one day, and, you know, that's it.
Yoga's hard.
It is, well, I'm doing one, it's 20 minutes. I'm going to do it probably 4 nights a week like I've been doing my exercise. But it was like, forget about cardio, which is cardio has always been my thing.
Yeah.
I've always done cardio, but it's not doing anything for me anymore.
Yeah.
So obviously I carry stress weight. So they say to do yoga. So I just looked up a yoga thing on YouTube, and it's 20 minutes, and it's hard,
But I think the more I do it, I'll get used to it.
Just like anything.
Exactly.
So what did you look up on YouTube to find this?
I always look up, well, one, I did my spin class on there because, I got that bike.
No, I mean
house.
where it said what kind
I didn't
of weight.
look up anything. It was just on my feed.
Oh.
But if you look up on the front picture, there's like, I think 4 different body types, and it shows you like there's like they cut it and they show you in red what kind of fat it is. But look up types of fat and exercises, or it was like types of fat that you carry, something like that.
And it was on YouTube?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so look, and sorry, I don't have enough, I don't have any more information than that. I just happened to come across it.
Yeah.
But yeah, look it up, and
Yeah, I think I will.
and I'll actually, while you're doing the witty wrap up, I'll see if I can find it in my history.
All right.
But yeah, I just wanted to mention that because I've apparently gained weight, and
I lost like 0.6 pounds, so basically nothing.
well, so yeah. Whoa, that scared me. Okay, so let me look up that, and we're gonna move on to witty wrap up.
Yes. These are like jokes, I guess. The first one is titled, Mom Suspects Her Son of Sleeping with His Roommate. What she does next is perfect. A mom visits her son for dinner who lives with a girl as a roommate. During his meal, his mother couldn't help but notice how pretty his roommate was. She had long been suspicious of a relationship between the two, and this had only made her more curious. Over the course of the evening, while watching the two interact, she started to wonder if there's more between him and his roommate. Reading his mom's thoughts, his son volunteered, I know what you must be thinking, but I assure you, we're just roommates. About a week later, his roommate came to him saying, Ever since your mother came to dinner, I've been unable to find the silver plate. You don't suppose your mother took it, do you? He said, Well, I doubt it, but I'll email her just to be sure. He sat down and wrote, Dear Mom, after your visit to me, the silver plate has been missing. I'm not saying that you did take the silver plate from my house, and I'm not saying that you don't take it. I'm not saying that you did take the silver plate from my house, and I'm not saying that you don't take it.
I think they meant didn't.
Yeah, didn't take it. But the fact remains that it has been missing ever since you were here for dinner. Love, your son. Several days later, he received an email from his mother which read, Dear son, I'm not saying that you do sleep with your roommate, and I'm not saying that you don't sleep with her. But the fact remains that if she was sleeping in her own bed, she would have found the silver plate by now under her pillow. Love, Mom.
That's great.
And that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, this one's called How My Husband and I Terrified a Cab Driver. This is legendary. My husband and I were dressed and ready to go out for a lovely evening of dinner and theater. Having been burgled in the past, we turned on a nightlight in the answering machine, then put the cat in the backyard. When our cab arrived, we walked out our front door, and our rather tubby cat scooted between our legs inside, then ran up the stairs. Because our cat likes to chase our budgie, we really didn't want to leave them unchaperoned. I'm assuming that's like a dog or something. So my husband ran inside to retrieve her and put her in the backyard again. Because I didn't want the taxi driver to know our house was going to be empty all evening, I explained to him that my husband would be out momentarily, as he was just bidding goodnight to my mother. A few minutes later, he got into the cab all hot and bothered and said, to my growing horror and amusement, as the cab pulled away, Sorry it took so long, but that stupid bitch was hiding under the bed, and I had to poke her ass with a coat hanger to get her to come out. She tried to take off, so I grabbed her by the neck and wrapped her in a blanket so she wouldn't scratch me like she did last time. But it worked. I hauled her fat ass down the stairs and threw her into the backyard. She had better not shit in the vegetable garden again.
Oh, that would definitely creep out your cab driver.
All right. My next story is, Father learns that his daughter can predict the future. What follows next is shocking. A father put his 3-year-old daughter to bed, told her a story, and listened to her say her prayers, which she ended by saying, "God bless Mommy, God bless Daddy, God bless Grandma, and goodbye, Grandpa." Father said, "Why did you say goodbye, Grandpa?" The little girl said, "I don't know, Daddy. It just seemed like the thing to do." The next day, Grandpa died. Father thought it was a strange coincidence. A few months later, the father put the girl to bed and listened to her prayers, which went like this: "God bless Mommy, God bless Daddy, and goodbye, Grandma." The next day, the grandmother died. "My gosh," thought the father, "this kid is in contact with the other side." Several weeks later, when the girl was going to bed, the dad heard her say, "God bless Mommy, and goodbye, Daddy." He practically went into shock. He couldn't sleep all night and got up at the crack of dawn to go to his office. He was nervous as a cat all day, had lunch sent in, and watched the clock. He figured if he could get by until midnight, he would be okay. He felt safe in the office, so instead of going home at the end of the day, he stayed there, drinking coffee, looking at his watch, and jumping at every sound. Finally, midnight arrived. He breathed a sigh of relief and went home. When he got home, his wife said, "I've never seen you work so late. What's the matter?" He said, "I don't want to talk about it. I've just spent the worst day of my life." She said, "You think you had a bad day. You'll never believe what happened to me. This morning, the mailman dropped dead on our porch."
Uh-oh.
Oops. All right, and this is my last one. This man bought a lie detector for his son and wife, but what followed is priceless. A man buys a lie detector robot that slaps people who lie. The man decided to try it out at dinner. Dad: "Son, where were you during school hours?" Son: "At school." The robot slaps the son. Son: "Okay, I was at my friend's house watching a DVD." Dad said, "Which one?" Son said, "Kung Fu Panda." The robot slaps the son again. Son: "Okay, it was an erotic movie." Dad: "What? When I was your age, I didn't even know what an erotic movie was." The robot slaps Dad. Mom: "Ha ha ha, he is your son after all." The robot slaps the mom.
Oh my god. It's like the worst family dinner ever.
That's all I got.
All right. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening again. And you can find us on anywhere that you listen to podcasts. You can also find our Facebook page. It's at Ghouls NO Podcast. Also, again, we're still looking for emails of your stories, so send them in at ghoulsnightoutpodcast@gmail.com. And we will talk to you next week.
Later.
Bye.